Hey everybody, it's Coach Kav and welcome back to episode number 8. So we're talking in-season training right now. We got a lot of questions here. About time I'm back here at SSI. I've been on the road a lot and about to jump back on the road again tomorrow. So I wanted to kind of get some questions asked from some of the athletes that are going on right now in season. Hopefully we could get some things going. I got Nicole here helping me out, put her to work on her day off of school since she's skipping. But so what do we got?
Mike asked, should I still lift during the season?
Awesome. So we get this question a lot. So Mike, first of all, thanks. But the biggest thing is you need to understand that at your age of training, you're still a beginner, no matter what. Most of the athletes that we're talking to right now are high school athletes. And Mike, as you're gearing up for your senior season, you're still a beginner lifter. And lifting, it's going to do a number of things for you in regards to your performance on the field during the season. What happens with younger and beginner lifters is they think that because they're sore, it's going to inhibit their performance on Friday nights. And it's a matter of, doing it properly that matters, right? I have a couple rules of like loading the spine during the season I don't like to do. But the general consensus is yes, you should be lifting in season. And I like to have our athletes lift a minimum of twice a week during the season. The best days to do that is the day right after the game, so a Saturday or a Sunday, depending how banged up you are, and that Monday or Tuesday. This way you still have, Wednesday, Thursday, to fully recover, before that game. So hopefully that answers your question. You definitely need to get after it in the weight room during the season.
Sean wants to know, how important is it to still work out during the season?
So same thing from Mike, but basically, the importance of your lifting in season is to keep your body tight. As a football player, you're playing a collision sport, so you're going to be banging guys out every single play and throughout practice as well. And we want to keep you safe. So what happens is if you don't stay tight, if you're not lifting consistently, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to decrease muscle mass in the season because you're constantly burning too many calories than what you were used to doing throughout the year. And you're not getting that intake during the season that you should be getting, most of you athletes, as far as a nutritional standpoint. So we want to make sure that we don't decrease our muscle mass in football's a mass sport, so we don't want to lose a lot of weight. And then the second thing is, a lot of times we have a lot of shoulder injuries because we're taking all these contusions and these big hits. We've got to make sure that, when we're in that weight room, that we're giving our body a chance to kind of stay tight, so when we're making those collisions, we're not all over the place and banging us up. So hopefully that answers your question. The biggest thing is you definitely need to be working in season, working out in the weight room. And then more importantly is we want to do it for the right reasons. So I'm not necessarily trying to hit max effort gains, but I do want to make sure that you're still making progress. Remember, you still are a beginner lifter.
Hakeem asked, should I do speed and agility drills during the season if I feel like I need to work on that?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So first of all, Hakeem, great question. We get this asked a lot, primarily because, we are the speed company. My background has been on the speed development side. And it's interesting because we take guys, specifically getting ready for the NFL Combine or even the high school combines for athletes like yourself, that, they've been training for a year, 2 years, and then, they get the off season and they only have frankly 6 to 8 weeks to get ready for their combine test. And we're able to get some great results out of them. Now that's not year-round athletic development, nor is that program developed specifically around year-round speed development. So in order to increase your speed, you do want to work on it year-round. The issue that I have is unless you've built up certain capacity of speed during the season, you want to be really focusing on your skill set. You're only able to acquire so many things at one time, and I do believe that you should be working on everything, but they need to be in priorities, right? So where maybe in the off season during combine training, we're focusing 80% of it on the technique for the combine so we could get ready for that. But in the in-season, we should be focusing most of our attention on, number one, staying healthy, right? This is why we want to lift in season and keep our bodies tight and keep our mass up, because we know that injuries are going to incur. If we decrease our body mass or our weight, we're going to definitely have more potential for getting hurt during the football season. So these are other reasons why we want to make sure that we keep our lifting schedule, going on in season so we can keep our mass up. But what happens is during the season, we want to focus on, number one, staying healthy. Number two, maintaining that weight. Number three, we really want to focus on our skill set. Because if we lack the ability to get open, it doesn't matter how fast we get there. If we are not able to get that ball in our hands, it doesn't matter what we're capable of doing without it. Now, the faster you are might give you more of those abilities to get open. So we do want to continuously work on them. What we like to have our athletes do is work on drills that are going to correlate to the speed of their sport. So specifically working on, if it's route running, you got to focus on two components. Number one is it's either breaking down, right, breaking down that route. So if that route is, that burst off that line, if that route is about creating separation on that cut after deceleration. So we want to work on those specific mechanisms of speed and movement as most specific to your position as possible. And then it's learning how to relax during the football season when it comes to speed work is probably one of the best things that I could have an athlete work on once they've already got to a level of speed that I'm happy with. And I'm never complacent with their speed development, but it's a matter of like where are they at that in their season, and not just in their football season, but in their season of life in their athletic development years. So what we want to focus on, Hakeem, is basically doing drills based upon your position. So did it say what position he's in?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that you're a wide receiver so I can kind of put this in context for you. Talking about route running, right, we want to talk about explosion off the line, right? So that's going to be your first 2-3 steps. Then it's going to be making a cut off that route, whatever it is. So it's the deceleration for that. So we want to work on those mechanisms specifically for deceleration. And then it's the reacceleration, or that separation from that actual point of that cut or that person, right? So you're making a separation off of a point, depending on what the design of the route is, of the scheme, or you're making a burst off of that person, creating separation from the defender so you can make something happen with the ball. So those are the things that I would work on. I wouldn't focus too much on any combine work during the season. A lot of guys are out there still running 40s, still doing 5-10-5s and pro agility shuttles and L drills. I don't think that now's the time to focus on that, but I think now is definitely the time to focus on, working on specific speed for your position so it does transfer. So, next question, what do we got? Let's keep it rolling.
Kyle asked, should I lift less during the season, and how can I do that and not be sore the next day?
Yeah, so again, right, it's all come down to training age, right? So Kyle, I think what a lot of kids are afraid of is that you guys are going to be sore the next day and you're not going to be able to perform. So there's a couple different things that you could do to help with soreness in season training. There's a couple different things that I think affect from the actual training side, and then the recovery, which is a completely different area, which is just as important, because the faster we can get you to recover as an athlete, the quicker we can get you back on the field. The faster we're able to recover, the quicker we can get you back into the training room. And we understand our results come from the intensity in the weight room, but our return on those results is actually on the field after we recover. So that's what we really want to focus on. So a couple things that you could do to make your, to feel better from a soreness standpoint. The first thing I would say is nutrition, right? So we want to make sure that we're on a proper nutritional program for recovery. I'm a big fan of branched chain amino acids, right after your workouts or even right after practice. Big fan of, getting your getting your sugars in, but through fruits. I think that's a definite way that you could increase your calories, and it's a very healthy way. But I think what we find with a lot of athletes is that they don't eat breakfast, they have a mediocre lunch at school, and then they have a big dinner. And what happens is they go from working out, they eat their big dinner, and then basically all of that nutritional value is kind of geared toward replacing what they just spent, but nothing to maybe work on what they're building afterwards. So I want to make sure that you as an athlete wake up and have a big breakfast. And then I would like to tell our athletes is take half of what you had for dinner. And I'm not saying cut the portion in half, but maybe just duplicate it, or make it like if you're doing chicken and rice at dinner with your parents, because most parents, cook a good meal during the season. What I want to make sure that you do is like take some of that, just put that in a wrap, take it to school the next day. Chicken and rice tastes perfectly fine cold, guys. You don't need to be super, high end. It's not like trying to eat a damn Ruth Chris, But I do want to make sure that you're getting good nutrients in your body throughout the entire day, and so your body's not basically in survival mode throughout the day while you're in school, and then just replenishing what you're using at practice. We want to start building on that. The third thing is the way you train, right? So I'm not a big believer in season to do a ton of like plyometric work, because I think that you're doing enough of that speed work and a lot of those plyos out at your practice because they're more sports specific. I believe that you should be focusing on your lifting stuff. Very slow, very controlled as far as, you know, your exercise goes. A lot of static stuff. If you're doing a lot of like static holds, ISO holds in certain positions. So, you know, for strength gain, you know, just doing basically a king squat, which is your rear leg elevated, you know, or split squat or a lunge position hold, and you just hold the down position of that for 30 seconds, even to a minute. You're not going to get a ton of soreness the next day, but yet you're going to get a huge return on that. You're going to be sore when you're doing a lot of eccentric work. I'm a big believer of eccentric training, but if you're having a problem with being sore, one of the things that we want to limit is the eccentric load in the weight room. So, you know, just, you know, all that, like, you know, what happens is you get sore because the muscle fibers are starting to tear, and then when they rebuild, that's what happens with your soreness. So we want to make sure that we're doing a lot of just kind of ISO holds. I also believe like prowler pushes or sled pulls that are really, really heavy help you in season. The sled doesn't push back against you. So the minute I push it, it stops. It doesn't push against me. And again, we talked about like eccentric loading is where the muscles are going to start to kind of tear and make these little micro traumas, which are going to create that soreness feeling. And I don't want you to think that just because you're sore is a factor of a good workout. Being sore is basically a representation of you not being conditioned for whatever the workload you had the day before, and or you not having proper recovery. So, and then the last area, which is in my opinion the most important, even more important than nutrition, and for you high school athletes, you must pay attention to this. It is sleep. 8 hours is what is the minimum requirements. It's not what's going to cut it for a high performance athlete like yourself. The best athletes in the world, they're getting 8 to 10 hours a night. And that's not even including in season. In season, they're not on their feet most of the days. They're just on their feet for the hour to 2 hours. You're on your feet throughout the entire day in school, walking around. You have a lot of other stress going on in your life. And then you have to go out to practice for another 2.5 to 3 hours potentially doing that, and then go home. So I want you to get you off your feet. I want you to get in bed early. And I want you to count the hours before midnight. Those are the ones that matter. So sleep's a big, big component to your recovery. So what else we got?
Daquil asks, is stretching the best way to loosen up after a game?
I would say yes, and I would kind of roll that around, but in a lot of different ways. Stretching is the best way to not feel tight during your game, which is the most important because we want to get better performance at the game. So a lot of athletes, they want to stretch after their workouts, which I still think is a great idea. But I've worked with some of the fastest athletes in the world, and our Olympic sprinters, we have them stretch, static stretch. And I know a lot of you guys think that dynamic mobility and dynamic stretching is what you really want to do for your warm-ups. And there's a time and a place for that after you've prepared the body and the muscle to go through that dynamic motion, okay? Our body's ready to move it all the time, which is very good. And you're not at the stage where your body's achy and old yet, but in order to keep it from getting to that point, we want to release tension in certain joints. And we want to make sure that the joint tension is where it should be. The only way we can do that is static stretch and change the tonus of the muscle over a long period of time. I'm not talking holding it down for 10 seconds. I'm talking about holding that position for 2 minutes to 20 minutes even. Most of our athletes in the building, before they even work out, have already static stretched for anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes before a workout. If I could do this with the Olympic athletes, some of the fastest athletes in the world, and my NFL athletes, I don't see why there's any reason why you should do anything different as a high school athlete. So, any other questions?
Your final question comes from Brandon, who asked, what is the best way to work through an injury during the season?
Oh, Brandon, great question. And first of all, I feel bad that you potentially got hurt, because to me, again, the number one goal to the season is it's having fun, but you can't do that if you're hurt, right? So the biggest thing from a coach's standpoint is to keep you healthy. And if you are banged up in the season, we have to kind of just take a step back and go, number one, why did that happen, right? We have to figure out kind of why it happened, what was really the cause, and kind of really address it. I think a lot of athletes, they kind of grind through the season with injuries, which in a lot of ways, I think that builds a lot of character as an athlete. It builds a lot of mental toughness, which is what I'm all about. But at the same capacity, you could do some long-term damage to your body if you don't understand why you got hurt, what is the problem, and then addressing the injury directly. So For instance, most athletes get issues with their shoulders or their ankles during the season just because of all the, the hits and the bangs and then, going up for balls, receivers, and you just kind of roll over a guy. And what happens is you let that ankle blow up and then you just kind of tape it, throw some ice on it, and then expect it to get better. If you don't aggressively treat the problem, it will never be fixed. We want to get, if your injury brought you from, if you were a 10, right, and the injury is bringing you back down to like a 6, and yet if we just get you back on the field at a 7, you're still at 70%. We want to get you all the way back to 100%. So, you might not be able to walk one day, and then all of a sudden you feel like 2-3 days have gone by, and you can get back onto the practice, and then you go full speed. Understand what's the most important thing. Friday nights under the lights, not Tuesday in practice. And the thing is as athletes, we've all gone soft, and coaches are now getting even softer. And the problem is that if you are not being honest with yourself and what the injury is, and being responsible in talking with your medical team at school, whether it be your athletic trainer or your parents taking you to a doctor, and then communicating whatever that information that you get from those doctors and specialists to your head football coach, then you are doing yourself a disservice. I know that sometimes you want to think that you're being big and tough by working through it, but by working through the pain is only creating long-term problems. I would rather see you take a day or 2 off and focus on your recovery in the rehab than miss 2 to 3 weeks of playing because you let this injury that was such a small issue be nagging and then become a major problem long term, and you might be missing the most important games, which is the playoffs. You might be missing some of the most important games, which are later in the season when the college coaches are able to go see you, which is happening about right now. You're right in the thick of the season. We want to make sure that you're healthy all the way through December so you can go into a playoff run and go ahead and compete for not only a heck of a run in your high school career, but opportunities to potentially play at the next level. And I don't care. I mean, I've been around programs that have kind of beat the crap out of their guys, and there's so much demand on them throughout the day, not even just in their sport. You look at Navy, like I'm super proud to wear this today because, some of the guys that we've had an opportunity to work with, they kicked butt, Houston last week and just beat one of the top teams in the country. Those guys are on a crazy schedule compared to, their counterparts across the field from them. Those guys have a luxury schedule compared to the Naval Academy guys, and their health is still the most important thing. And they're always working through injuries, not necessarily around them. I think that if you do work around them, that you're going to be a lot smarter and healthier athlete long term. If you do work through them and it's not a catastrophic injury, they're definitely going to make some mental toughness out of you, make a man out of you. I just don't want to, have that potentially hinder you from the success that you could have on field. So, thanks for the question. Most importantly is that you stay healthy, you lift in season that's going to prevent potential injuries that are going to occur, and then also do some movement and speed work that is going to help enhance the performance on the field. So a lot of the things that we talk about today that you kind of combine, that's going to help with the training side of it, it's going to help with the recovery side of it. So when you get on the field, the result's going to be better. So for you guys that are gearing up for playoffs and gearing up for the next few weeks, which is this last run of your season, it's extremely important that you take care of your bodies so that you can take care of your team on game day. Good luck to you. Let me know if you have any questions.